Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank everyone who's involved in second-hand clothing and second-hand clothing business, because without second-hand clothes, the project that I'm going to talk about today would not be possible. Especially One World Centre and Recycle for Change, Garson and Shaw, and Acadian Wipers have been all part of making this happen. This is Richmond Vale Academy, and we are located in the Eastern Caribbean. If you look at the problems we've faced over the last 8 years, we came to St. Vincent in 2007, we see a lot of problems related to climate change. We have got a very good introduction to that earlier today. But what I want to point out with this picture is where is St. Vincent, because you might all want to go there after this presentation. And we in the Caribbean, if you take the whole Caribbean region, we only emit 0.1% of the world's emission. But we are going to get 99.9% of the problems. Now, Richmond Vale Academy is located in a small island nation. Our nation was independent in 1979. We had been under British rule for 200 years, where virtually nothing was developed. And it's one of the poorer countries in the Caribbean after Haiti. Our population is about 110,000 people. We have 32 islands where 8 are inhabited. And we are mainly getting our income from tourism, farming, and Vincentians living abroad, working and sending money home. Our academy is located at the end of the road on the island. And we are a registered nonprofit in St. Vincent. We are located on 30 acres of land. So besides school activities, we are training international volunteers from around the world and St. Vincent to take climate change action. We are involved in climate smart farming, and we do ecotourism, sustainable ecotourism. Students have come from about 68 different nations, and since 2007, when we came to St. Vincent, we have trained about 600 people. We have impacted on about 50,000 people on the island and nearby. A lot of the activities of the Academy changed in 2012 when I met Thomas, Hurricane Thomas. Arriving to St. Vincent in 2007, so we had 30 acres of land and there was a lot of bananas. So we thought, well, we better learn how to grow bananas. And that took quite some time. And after 3 years, we finally learned how to grow these bananas. And when Hurricane Thomas passed, over just 7 hours, the work that we had done was gone, just gone. 90%, this little island had a lot of income from bananas. And so 90%, and that means that 90% of our farmers were out of jobs. So at the Academy, okay, so our bananas came down. We had a little bit of more legs to stand on. We had some tourism, we had some tuition fees, some donations, and so on. But a lot of people, they just lost their livelihood. And when you're in the middle of this, you start to ask questions. Okay, so what's happening here? You learn it's more frequent. You learn it's going to happen again. And when you're finished crying for all your loss, you start thinking, so what can we do? What is the problem with growing only bananas? And not doing, for example, intercropping. You have bananas, you have trees, you have... So the wind would easily blow down all the bananas. But if you have trees, they will act as windbreakers. If you do monocropping, you run into a lot of other problems also when you do chemical farming. So we start to ask a lot of questions because it was very serious. It was very different to be in the middle of it. I'm born in Norway, where I've never been in weather-related catastrophes like I have in St. Vincent. But the catastrophes didn't stop here. Just a couple of years later, we had more rain in 5 hours that would fall in 14 days in the rainy season. And the problem that we get with the water system, the public water system, which is a centralized system, the electricity system, which is also centralized, and with landslides and with flooding, was beyond what we could understand. It was not possible to understand what we were witnessing right in front of our eyes when the water came up to here, came up to here. It washed away hospitals, schools, family homes, roads, farms. So the weather-related catastrophe from here also, it's hard to imagine that these problems can come. Like you will see, there is a landslide here right in our neighborhood. And you would say, well, they cut down all the trees. They shouldn't do that. Well, this wasn't a problem until now. And because of the heavy rain, it loosens the soil, and then you get this landslide, and it's fatal. So, with these catastrophes, we start to think about what can we do? And we discussed with a lot of our friends for a long time, and then we created a program that we call the St. Vincent Climate Compliance Conference. So we set out for a volunteer program. Our school is another kind of school that combines practice with theory. So our students train, and then they go out and take actions with the many people in the nearby communities. We are in the 8th year of this program, and it has been a fantastic journey. You're always a small group from the academy, just to get you the size. We're about 25 employees, and we're about 50 students, volunteers at this point. And students join for 1 month, 6 months, 18 or 10 months program. And we decided that we were going to work on 3 lines: food and water security, energy security, and ready for climate change. How do we get ready for climate change? So you can, of course, sit and write a whole lot of ideas down in a book and so on, but how do we actually do this? And how do we start this? But we just knew we had to do something. So the first thing that we did was that we went out in all the nearby communities and we talked to 250 people. Is climate change happening? Why is it happening? What can we do? And the ordinary people in the villages, they knew very well that climate change is happening, but not all the reasons why. But here we are together, it's happening, what can we do? And the first actions, was to start to clean up beaches and get people involved. But we very soon realized that we needed to walk the talk and change our campus and academy into be what we are talking about. And we looked at our agriculture, and we were using fossil fuel-based imported chemical fertilizers. That's not very sustainable. Now, to change from chemical agriculture to organic agriculture took us quite a long time, but we had to do that. Then at the academy, we went from using only fossil fuel-based energy to 100% renewable energy. And starting off with the food. And sometimes we don't think about how dangerous the food we are eating is for the environment. For example, you woke up this morning, and I'm sure you had a wonderful breakfast. On your breakfast plate, you had different colors: red, yellow, green. You had fruits. But you also had 5 milligrams of pesticides. Well, don't worry, it's not going to kill you right now, you know. But these pesticides accumulate in your body over time. And these pesticides kills the soil. Once you kill the soil and you have rain, you much more get landslides. Once you use all these pesticides, some say, well, they're going away, you can wash them away. No, there's no away. So where are they going? So many of these pesticides go out to the sea. And we are on an island, and around the island we have a lot of coral reefs that are still not as damaged as we heard about earlier today. The pesticides damage the corals. The corals are needed so we can protect our island against storm surges. So, starting off, trying to make our academy on organic agriculture took us quite some time. Today we are very far. Our vegetable gardens, we have a series of greenhouses, we have a series of agroforestry vegetable growing systems, and we produce greens and vegetables to about 40,000 meals a year. And we have made, it's called climate smart farming, but really it's an ecosystem-based farming. So instead of using chemicals for certain bugs you don't like, you invite the bugs into your garden with herbs and flowers to eat the bugs you don't like. So you get to build an ecosystem in your garden. And these are some of the principles that we need to do to protect the soil and protect so that we can keep our production chemical free. We started off with small compost piles, and so instead of imported fertilizers, we use compost from food scraps, from shrubs, from manure, from animals. We have some great compost producers here, and I tell you, this is really good technology, right? So collect all the weeds from the garden, throw them out to the horses, you see it's here, and then it goes in here, it goes around here, and it comes out here. So, and this is really effective. So when you are working with organic farming, you also find very good ways to incorporate your animals into your whole production. Today we have a really good production of compost, as some of our commercial crops needed a bigger load of compost, so we had to increase and make it bigger. There are various ways that you can enhance the soil, and those of you who are interested in organic farming, you will soon find yourself really fascinated with soil. Soil is alive. Soil is full of microbes and fungi, and it's a whole basis for life. And one way to enhance soil that has been depleted is using something called biochar. Really, it's charcoal you put on your barbecue. But when you use this barbecue charcoal in your soil, it's called biochar. So we have made various models of ovens. So you put your wood you don't use, you prune trees, whatever, scrap wood, you burn it in the oven, you crush the charcoal, and you put that into your soil. This charcoal gives a very good environment in the soil, which makes the plants grow much better and much faster. Part of our organic farming is to save seeds. We have a whole greenhouse where we grow plants just to save seeds. Genetic diversity has changed a lot over the years, so today I think we eat about 10 different kinds of tomatoes on average, and these are the only types available on the market. But when 1900 started, there were more than 300 types of tomatoes. So the agricultural genetic diversity has been reduced with 75%, and some of the species will never come back. So what we need to do is to protect the seeds also against the polluted seeds which are genetically modified. We looked into our pantry and realized a lot of the food we were buying, still we were growing more, still came from abroad. So we were looking, how can we reduce? So we start to make jams, we grow more staples, and we went around to look for some neighbors who had some cows and made a deal. Why don't you milk your cow and bring it over on your carbon neutral transport? Growing food is a good realization. Many of our students, they had never planted a tree, they had never grown food. So realizing what it actually takes to grow food is a really, really good training for the future, and also get ready for climate change. We have developed different models. So one is the vegetable models, but we also have a forest garden. We have 2 acres where we have planted 800 trees, where we have 60 different species. And actually what we're looking at right here is the birth of maybe 500-600 butterflies. He said, well, not really romantic, but I tell you, this is really beautiful. When you didn't have the butterflies around for many years, and then they come because you are going away from chemicals, you have more birds, you have more other insects, and that's your natural pest control. That's your birds. So by mimicking the natural systems, you can really see how life just increases. So this is our forest garden. In the middle of the forest garden, we have our pigs. So here's Piggy, and Piggy, he loves compost. So Piggy's meat these days is almost organic, all right? And piggy love moringa. And they are fed the food scraps and a lot of the trees in the forest garden. So this is also, again, a really good system. Some of the fruits. There's a challenge on this with meat production. You know, we talk about climate change. Should you eat meat? Should you not eat meat? But I think the question is very much about what are sustainable proteins. Now, still at the Academy today, we have this challenge with sustainable proteins. So a lot of the meals that we eat are imported beans, lentils, chickpeas, and so on. And actually, if we look at the mileage, the packaging, and all that, and you take, for example, locally raised chicken, locally raised sheep, the carbon footprint on eating some meat, but locally and sustainable raised, that's how you get your sustainable proteins. So we're on that with pig meat. We produce all our own eggs, and we have made our production with chicken sustainable in the way that we have pens like this, where 2 are resting, and then the chicken use 1. After 3 weeks, they go here. After 2 weeks, they go here. And we collect all the manure, and of course, we collect all the eggs. And we just started to rear sheep. And by the end of this year or the beginning of next year, we will have cows, but we also can start a small dairy production. Primarily, our food production is to feed ourselves. So we have to feed like 50, 60 people, 3 meals a day. And then you start to realize, what does it take? And we are mimicking models, because people come from all over the island to visit and see, this is some ways to do it, this is some ways to do it. We have a small commercial production of passion fruit. We're actually the biggest passion fruit producer on the island. And we process some of the passion fruit into juice, and it's also a way for us to raise some extra money. Water is a big question into the future of climate change. Only 2% of the water resources we can drink. There's only 2% of freshwater resources if you look at all the water resources on the planet. And humans, we're not very smart taking care of this water. For example, we shit in it. Yeah, but it's not very smart. We need to rethink how are we taking care of our water resources, right? So we started to collect water off the roofs of the Academy. So we collect off 1,200 square feet. Right now, our capacity is much bigger. But we have water come into these tanks, and we use them to flush the toilets, shower, and wash clothes. So that wasn't enough. So as we were increasing our food production, we also built a big pool. This has a 150,000 liter capacity, and the water is pumped into the garden and with a solar pump system. Okay, so now we have an academy that's going to be off the grid, so we get to that with the electricity. But when we talk about water, so we're collecting a lot of rainwater, but then we use it, and then it comes out again. So how can we make a circular system? So we have made a gray water system, and this gray water system is recycling the water, rainwater that comes out again, and we are using that back into the farm. We are working on a model now for the black water, which is more complicated, but if I see you again in a year or two, I will tell you about that. We're working on some models on human manure. So it's basically just a compost toilet. But think about it, every time you flush, you use 4 gallons of water. One human being can survive for 14 days on 4 gallons of water. So food and water, and to become an island with renewable energy, starting off with ourselves, we have 2 solar systems. We have, on the main building and dormitory building, we have a 30 kilowatt system, and this is connected to a battery bank. So we have 120 batteries, and this covers all the needs we have at the main building. So we can have 2 days without sun, and we will still have enough storage in the batteries. And if we have day 3 and day 4 without much sun, we just start to switch off a little earlier. So we've got to encourage our students that no internet after 8 o'clock, which is after a bit of a discussion, we come to an agreement because we also want breakfast, right? And this building is our workshop and classroom building. We are setting up a 60 kilowatt solar system within a couple of months. So we will be completely off using fossil fuels. Then we are using solar water heaters, and we are also, for cooking, part of our cooking is done with biogas. There are many things we can do to save energy. You can measure your appliances, you can change to LED lights. You can also look into the construction if you're doing upgrades. The roofs that we have at the Academy now, we have upgraded all the roofs. They're actually climate smart roofs. These recycled plastic obtain 2,000 times less heat than galvanized. So there are actually a lot of ways that we can go into saving energy. The biogas, we cook some of our breakfast on biogas. We really have developed, well, we haven't developed the model, but we are working on getting this model out in St. Vincent. So actually, what you take here, you take kitchen waste. So you have your little kitchen waste. You have 1.5 kilo. You add 15 liters of water, and you can actually cook for 5 hours. So this model we have developed to spread it out around in St. Vincent. It cost about $450, but our challenge now is to get the models, we're still working on some models, down per, so the price per unit is less, and then that's the way that we can spread it. So, changing the ways we do things at the Academy, inviting people from all over the island, it's a constant. We have about 1,000 visitors a year. School groups, church groups, journalists, politicians, families, they come to visit and learn about the models. But then we have to say, so how do we really take this out on the island? The first 2 years, so in our book we have described very clearly about these first years, where we have started out with cleaning up, clean up. And we did river cleanups, beach cleanups, recycling rallies, community cleanups with thousands of people. And it's much cleaner in St. Vincent today, and people have much more awareness of the dangers of plastic. This plastic's gonna block the drain next time we have a flooding. So with less trash, we also have less damage from the climate catastrophes. We've taken this to make and produce a lot of publications for libraries and for schools. And after we had done this for a while, we said, so what is the next step? What's the next step to get more ready for climate change? And then trees are very important, right? That's from the trees. That's from the ocean. Every second breath is from trees and shrubs and plants, and every second breath is from the ocean. So by planting more trees, we produce oxygen, and also the trees help us clean up the atmosphere. So we thought, well, this is obviously a really good idea and easy to mobilize people. But it wasn't so easy when we said, well, maybe we should plant some trees. But people had all these reasons why it wouldn't work, you know. The goat will eat it, and if that tree grow up, you know, it's going to fall over and break the house, and you know, people not going to care, and you know what, they're going to forget watering it. And so when we went out to try to get people into tree planting, all we got was that this is not going to work. So we were thinking, so how do we do this? So we had to come up with a tree that people want to plant. And that was the moringa tree, and it has enormous health benefits. It's like eating a vitamin pill. And we got that campaign out there, and we grabbed the beer company slogan of hold your own, but hold your own moringa tree. And somehow this took off in a way that we had not expected at all. So people from all over, from police force to teachers to politicians to housewives, came to hold their own trees. So we did 20,000 of these trees around the island. So when you come and visit, you will see a moringa tree over there, a moringa tree over there, a moringa tree over there. So it really took off, and we got a lot of campaigns out there so that people could get involved in planting trees. Then we took the tree planting to the next level, and that was to participate in the Olympic Games in tree planting. So we got this invitation. This is actually an initiative from Finland, Eno Olympics, out of the Rio Plus 20 conference in 2012. And at this climate conference, they decided to plant millions of trees across the world. And this school movement grabbed it and invited all schools around the world to participate. So the ministry invited us to participate in this, the Ministry of Environment and Health. And just like, so how can we win this? What do we do to win? So there was 3 categories. One category was the country would win that would plant with the most schools. Tiny little island, you know, we have 100 schools, right? So we couldn't really win that category. Turkey won that category. Then the second category was that you could win gold if you planted the most trees. Small country, no. Belarus won. They planted 180,000 trees in the 2013 Olympic Games in tree planting. Now the third category was plant with the highest percentage of schools. Ta-da! Then we went out, the registered anything that could be called a school. The Sunshine School for handicapped children, the orphanage, all primary schools, all secondary schools, all vocational schools, and we also registered the Belle Isle Correctional Facility, which is the prison. So we had to head out and get planted with all, register all these within a certain date. So there we had registered more than 100 units in St. Vincent to plant the trees. And we planted and planted and planted and planted, and yeah, ta-da! We won the Olympic Games in tree planting. And I tell you, all our children, they were so proud of this. And every time we made a lesson, we taught about the importance of trees for protecting the environment and protecting the soil. And we did this again in 2014. And today in St. Vincent, it's very normal to plant trees. I think every second week you open the newspaper, there has happened a tree planting action. Teaching has been very crucial all the way through with awareness campaigns in schools. We do a lot of radio programs. We produce newspapers, hand them out, and go to a lot of community groups. And we also work very close together with the government. It's very interesting to work with governments. I'm sure for some of you who are working without getting laws through and getting your bins out there or whatever legislation you need to work with, it's very interesting. And we've been quite frustrating sometimes. Here we're working with the government on new e-mobility laws and energy policies. But what we have understood is that we just got to keep looking for the right people in government that you can work with. Because, you know, politicians are, you know, this kind of special kind of people. But among them, there are some, and they really care, and they're very happy to work together with you. So today, our relationship working side by side with the Ministry of Sustainable Development, the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Health and Environment is a really good, constructive one. We participate in conference around the region. So this picture here is from the Renewable Energy Conference in Barbados, where you have nearly all countries in the Caribbean present. And at many of these conferences we are presenting, because there are many people looking to St. Vincent. We host several open days, and we invite our politicians to come and talk about why sustainability is important. And it's good for them to give them this opportunity. Here is probably the new Prime Minister of St. Vincent. His father is governing right now, and this is the Minister of Agriculture. So it's good to get them to talk about the important subjects. We have won several awards, from the Energy Globe Award to Climate Smart Agricultural Awards. And we continue a big push for working with media, because you have to work on this again and again and again and again to get more people involved. To take the food and water question more out among the people, we have started a movement 2 years ago on building vegetable gardens. This is called a home garden. And this is really taking off. We have built several gardens. We have developed a model. So within the model, so it's a backyard garden, smaller or bigger size. Each family will have a water tank, a vegetable bed, a livestock component, some trees, something called a banana circle, and a compost pile. And people in the beginning, the first 5 gardens that we were going to do, it was very hard for us to find people to participate. Because again, to get things started, you just need to add, actually a lot of extra energy. And we got the first 5 gardens done. And then we made another 15. Now we're just completing another 30. And right this morning, I was sending off a concept to the University of Cambridge where we're going to work with another 150 households. So our plan, you see the gardens, they're really beautiful. Because you will also have all the mimicking of the ecosystem that includes flowers, it's beautifications. There's chicken coops, there are seed nurseries. And all the gardens are built in a way that preserves water. It's using permaculture techniques or organic farming techniques. There's a variety that actually takes care of the soil and keeps the water so it doesn't run away. You'll keep all our water in your garden. We have worked with several school gardens. And yeah, these are some of the last gardens from the 30 gardens. And we got through to funding. Again, here, the Canadian government has been amazing. They've given us 2 grants now, the Canada Fund for Local Initiatives. We're on board the United Nations Environment Program with small grants. So also we are able now to channel funds to do this because it's very important all the time to see how can you actually get the funding. The more funding we can get, the faster we also can move. We had to develop our nursery, so our nursery at the school provides only organic plants, and we get all these plants out to the gardens and also out to people who will do tree planting actions. Then we host a lot of workshops, teach how to make seedlings, how to save seeds, how to make compost, how to do it. Yeah. And every garden has a water collection. Some of the families that we work with, for example, Maurice, who lives here, she never had running water in her garden. So many of the families that we work with, they're really impoverished families. So we plan to take this all over the island. I'll show you a map in a bit. Now, if you take energy security, you say, okay, we're a tiny little school at the end of the road. What can we do about energy security? Yeah, we can walk the talk ourselves. But how can we influence the energy policy in St. Vincent? But here it's how it's moving. We have a okay progressive government, and right now 85% of our energy is from importing fossil fuels, burning it, and providing energy. But we have a volcano. I'll take you up there when you come. We're at the foot of this volcano. We'll walk up here. This can provide geothermal energy, and right now we are building a geothermal plant in St. Vincent. And within just 3 years from now, we will have about 60–70% on geothermal energy. We have 3 hydropower plants, and they provide us up to 20%. And then solar is coming. It's a solar power plant here. The government has just opened a solar power unit here on one of the islands, and this one is 600 kilowatt system. So this is moving a lot, and we are working together with the government on the energy policies and get the reason for the energy policies out to the people, because it's not so easy. You see, when you look at climate change and energy security, then you have to look at grid tied connections and off-grid systems, because when climate change strikes, you're out of energy and you're out of water. So what are the solutions for this? While a government doesn't want to lose its control of selling the energy. So there are many elements here where we work with, well, it can be certain off-grid systems, smaller microgrids, and so on. So there's actually many considerations, and the answer is not just off-grid, the answer is not just on-grid. And there will be different answers depending on where you are. We're working on getting our biogas digester out, and the reason is that most people in St. Vincent cook on LPG gas, which is based on imported fossil fuels. So again, we're not energy secure. If we can't get energy from abroad, we can't cook. So obviously not energy secure. The biogas model is interesting. Here is another model we have worked on with IBC tanks. And we have installed a few of these out in the middle of nowhere. And you will have Farmer Benson here and Farmer Pat. They are cooking on the kitchen waste and papaya waste, and they're working. So we're also monitoring and collecting data from these so that we can make the bigger push. So here's where we're at. We have started in so the academy is up here. So we have started in this area with the 50 models. So we have 50 model gardens, and they are impacting more than 500 households. So if one household has at least 5 members, we're talking about 2,500 to 3,000 people benefiting right now. And we have got funding for gardens up in this area. We're focusing on this area of the island because it's poorer. So that's where we are at. Global warming and climate change is going to hit the poor the hardest. So we're headed up here in a few months, and we are having several partners for funding in this area. And we have identified partners now for this area, and this is what we are working on right now. So all over the island, plus some of the Grenadines, will have the model farms in the backyard so people can see it's possible to grow without chemicals. Because if you look, after the Second World War in our country, we fed ourselves organic food. From that time until today, something happened. So we were trained to believe that chemicals is necessary to do farming. It's not. So to unlearn, retrain, takes some time. We will continue with our villages with off-grid solar houses. So when disaster strikes, then people can get to this house, this house, this house, where you can charge your phone, cool your medication, call for help, and so on. So this will be our contribution to a climate-compliant St. Vincent in terms of energy. The model gardens, we will take it to small farms, and we will get to that by 2021, and we will have the CO2 neutral cooking solution. But this 10 years, actually 10 years is quite short time to make this change. We're making a big impact, but we're already looking at what's beyond 2021. So after 2021 have started, and here are some of our ideas. We're living on an island. During the energy crisis in the 70s, most people cut down the mangroves to cook. Mangroves are important, are crucial to protect us against storm surge and also keep the biodiversity and a healthy ocean going. We have a model right outside our school at the coastline where we're planting mangroves and coastal trees. This is a white mangrove, and this white mangrove is now 4 years. So by making a model, again, you can copy that model. But you'll have to go, it takes some years, but then you really have protection against storms. Because we have about 85% of the people who live above 5 meters above sea level. So as the sea levels are rising, we have we're really troubled. You know, if you look into small island developing states, it's really crucial that we protect these small island states, because where can we go? So mangroves is crucial for this, so we're looking into that by building this model. We have started a diving center where we are working with marine research and protection of marine resources. And this we will take to develop our model of a marine protected area in North Leeward, and where you can see Alhor campus, where people come for the sustainable campus models. We have eco lodges. We do marine research in addition to our diving center. We will start to grow corals. Growing corals is like planting trees. We have a few nonprofits in St. Vincent right now who successfully growing corals, and the first 2,000 coral trees have been planted in the island of Mystique. So we're teaming up with them and starting a coral nursery at the Richmond beach. We have a turtle nesting site, and we're going to develop this mangrove park to have bird watching. So this is where we're headed. But to develop this takes time. And we want to use this model to create a model all over St. Vincent that our island becomes the hub for a sustainable Caribbean and a sustainable world. And the sustainable tourism goes into protecting the nature, we're eating local, we're using carbon neutral energy and so on. So this network is we're looking into how do we make this happen over the next 10 years. So I actually like to think that it is really possible to make a change. We're a very small country, very small island, but we will have a very big impact in the world because people are going to look and say, so how did you do it? And this is how we did it. So don't hold back on dreaming big. As a dream, decide, develop, do, and all of you and all of your friends and contacts can just get involved. So go for it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
So now we are all going to St. Vincent.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Are there any questions right now? Or you can also go to Stina after in the break. There's some here.
So my question's kind of long. First of all, what's the population of St. Vincent?
The population is about 110,000 people.
Okay. So the academy. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Do you need some special training to be a part of the academy? Like how can somebody join the academy?
That's a really good question.
When somebody says that, that means I don't get an answer.
Because here's your chance. You don't need any specific background to join our academy. You have to be over 18. You have to be hardworking, and you can join a course on 1 month, 6 months, or 10 months, and get involved. You work in a group, in a core group, and you study about global warming and climate change, and you go out and you actually do something. And St. Vincent is a fantastic nation because any nation is welcome. We had students from Jordan, from Iran, from Turkey. So anybody is welcome. No visa needed. You get it when you're at arrival.
Can I ask you another question?
Yes.
So does the person have to come and stay there, and work there, or you have to come and live there?
Yeah, the school is a boarding school. And in the school, you train in your profession, which should be climate change or poverty reduction. It's kind of your profession. And the other thing we focus on at the school is to train young people, well, older as well, to have collective abilities. Now, this is crucial in another kind of school, that you work together, you govern your day together, you govern your school together, you govern your team and your actions together. These are skills that are very crucial for people to go out and create development in the world today. So yes, you train and you live at the school 24/7.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.